Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Vibin Higher Podcast. As always, I'm your host Trevor, and I am pleased to report that I am bursting forth from a rather trying time in my own life, albeit a short one, and that I've found a new sense of motivation, and I've refound my passion not only in my personal life, but the passion to stay active in this struggle that we find ourselves in here on planet Earth. So I hope that everybody out there is doing just as well as I am, and I hope that you're all ready for a really incredible podcast that we did with our friend Jeffery Jaxen. Jeffrey is an author, a researcher, and just an all-around amazing guy that focuses a lot on holistic health. In fact, he's the director of Holistic Health for the Flower of Life Center. So we spoke about a lot of things, everything from smart meters to the global awakening to cancer treatments, all kinds of really good stuff. And as always, just like last time, Jeffrey had a lot of really incredible things to say. So I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I did. And yeah, let's just jump into it. All right, Jeffrey. Well, thanks for joining the podcast again. It has been, I think, at least a couple months since we last talked. A lot has been going on. You've been doing a lot of writing and actually letting us use it on vibinhigher.com, which is incredible. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the article that you posted last week, which is the Food Revolution Victory article. So
Yes.
What's going on with that?
So there's so much going on with that. In fact, I'm really excited that we're talking right now because this is kind of the apex of it. It's been really building, and it seemed to just literally kick off today or in the past week, really. So Natural News, Mike Adams started a forensic food lab, and what he's been doing is, most food labs, they use what they call independent food labs, and they do in-house testing. But the integrity and trust, in my opinion, is questionable. I mean, Monsanto does in-house testing, and you know how that goes. So Mike Adams has released a lot of information, and one of it was the toxic heavy metal content in a lot of the proteins. Well, he released that months ago, and then what happened is he released another one. He said in his video, he said, "I just got these protein powders from Whole Foods, and they still have heavy metals in them." So my question to Whole Foods, as Mike Adams said, was, why are you still selling this? So I took that. I said, this is bombshell, because it speaks about everything that's wrong with this. So Whole Foods made a statement regarding GMO food saying, we will take it off our shelves by 2018. And I was kind of up in arms about that. I put out on social media, I really hit them hard. And actually to their, I don't know, they tweeted back to me on Twitter.
Oh, Whole Foods did?
They actually did, yeah.
You got a response.
I got a response. So they said, we're working on it, and it was a very good response. They were working on it. It takes a long time, the supply chain. So that was a while back. So when Mike Adams came out with this, I said, wait a minute, why are we waiting on them? If they're not going to serve our needs, then they fall by the wayside. That's as easy as it gets. It's essentially like, I use an analogy of like a neighbor coming over every morning and sprinkling some heavy metals in my morning water. And him saying, hey man, look, we got, I'll stop doing this in like 4 years. It's like, wait, no, you're going to stop doing it now. And if you're not, then I'm going to go shop somewhere else, or I'm going to get my food from someplace else. And so that's why I wrote this article. It really leads to one of two things. We either grow our own food, or we start voting with our dollars, making informed decisions about with local people, especially, that are doing better jobs or stocking better stuff. There's no reason why we have to wait for Whole Foods. And I'm not bashing Whole Foods particularly. I mean, there's a lot of other companies doing this, but they were the ones in my article. And I actually got some flack from that, from a lot of comments. People really didn't like that in the comments. And if there's someone else out there selling it better, I will buy it from them. It's as simple as that. I don't think we have to wait as people for a large company to change its ways years down the road, when we know that it's actually illegal to sell these products, because the heavy metals in these products are above the legal limits to be ingesting and selling.
So this isn't some sort of nefarious thing, is it? Is it just that they're sort of being lazy about a certain step in the process, that they're not taking these heavy metals out, or is it something that they're adding in?
Well, to be honest with you, they're not adding them in. to be honest with you, I don't know exactly the steps of the process, but from what I understand, from what I've researched, is the source is contaminated. So a lot of the rice in the rice protein, for example, comes from China, and China is notorious. Anything that comes from there is notorious for having heavy metal contamination. Perhaps not anything, but they have notorious products with heavy metal contamination. So that's one of the issues. Now, the protein company that sources the rice from China is having that problem, and Whole Foods is stocking that. So that goes into the question about supply chain. So now the supply chain is contaminated, but everything relies on the supply chain. So it takes a long time to find new sources to go out and have those tested. And I don't know what they're doing working behind the scenes. That a lot of these companies release statements that sound good, but they're probably really scrambling behind these scenes. In fact, there's a lady in one of my articles, I mentioned her. She's called the Food Babe, and she just literally today, or yesterday, she wrote an article, and it was called something about Jello. I have it here. It was the title of the article is "This Childhood Favorite Has a Warning Label in Europe. Why not here?" And she basically explains what is in Jello, and it's not good.
Yeah,
and
I can't imagine it's very good.
Yes. So literally 24 hours later, which is today, on her Facebook, they said that Jello is scrambling, the company is scrambling to change the label because she did this. I mean, this is like instant turnaround now we have in these companies where they should be. I don't think this is a bad thing. They should be under our thumb, the people's thumb, and they should be answering to us and putting out what we want instead of putting out advertising telling us what we should want.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was the one who she had Subway reverse something that they were adding into their bread recently, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So these are these. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In my opinion, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. There's so much stuff out there that the companies, I shouldn't say have been getting away with, but have been lazy on. Or I even should go a step further and say the people have been lazy on putting these companies in check. So it seems like the tides are turning, and with this happening, I can only imagine being a upper level management person in these companies. In fact, when I wrote that last article, I wrote it picturing a CEO in a board meeting reading this to the board meeting and then saying, "What the hell are we going to do?"
Yeah, I mean, it almost goes beyond one step beyond that idea of voting with your dollar, in that we're able to, with the internet and social media, sort of get direct contact with these big businesses and affect change.
Exactly. It's instant change for the ones that want to act right. In fact, Portland, Oregon just became the largest city to reject Walmart, which is another. I mean, it's happening on a lot of fronts, and it's in my opinion, this is the new paradigm with this. It's if they're not going to listen, they're going to fall by the wayside because they can't make us buy their food, and especially if we have local. If they continue to try to make us buy their food, it's going to backlash on them, and everyone will go local, which is already happening anyway. The communities are building up their own local farmers markets, and local community brands are coming out. In fact, there's a woman here in Michigan. I don't know her personally, but I know of her. Her father was a diabetic and would not stop eating ice cream. So she just decided one day to sit in the kitchen for a while and make her own ice cream for her father that was something that wouldn't hurt him. So it was all natural, there's no sugar, and she started her own company. And as soon as she went live with it, Hershey's approached her to try to buy it. So that's the only way that a lot of the companies can work. They have to look grassroots, and anything that pops up, they have to try to buy it and have these people sell out. Now, to her compliment, she didn't. She turned them away, and she's going with it. And I think
good.
that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I mean, you hear stories about almost like that all the time, about these sort of, like you said, grassroots things popping up that are sort of just absorbed by the bigger, companies.
I think that's their only mode of dealing with this stuff. I really do.
Well, I think, and that gets to that idea that we talk about so often here at Vibin Higher, that idea of a global awakening that's happening on so many fronts, and not just in food freedom or in things like, we've been talking about with getting, ingredients, harmful ingredients removed. I think it's happening across the spectrum.
Yeah, and it goes back to free association. If people aren't going to do it, or if they're going to take too long, you had a good run, good game. Sorry, next on to the next one. On to the next person that's going to be in the new paradigm or the new consciousness. But I totally agree. It's happening everywhere. I can see it every story I read, every article I read. You can see little hints of it in there.
Yeah, it's weird because I've you just had a trying couple of weeks in my life, and it's weird how you sort of get absorbed by your own little bubble and things going on in your own bubble. But to get out of it again and realize what's going on in the world and realize that there is a real positive change being affected everywhere, it is a beautiful feeling, and it's good to get back into that.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I might as well take this time to segue into this. The last couple of weeks have been higher magnetics when it comes to the solar flares,
Yeah.
and this is a trend that's going to be going on until it's estimated till about September of this coming year. Higher activity. Solar flares are magnetic, and I want to give a pat on the back or a shout out to a man named Dr. Simon Atkins because he's the first person I heard talk about this publicly. He coined the word a new social movement regarding solar activity affecting people. And we're in an uptick of solar activity. NASA, governments, companies even, they all talk about this behind closed doors, and they know this. And the solar flares are magnetic, and our brains are magnetic, our heart, our aura, electromagnetic aura. And when we get hit by these things, it throws us out of our normal bounds. So not everyone, but many people in my life have also had a bad week the last couple weeks. People freaking out, literally calling me. I mean, just weird stuff. So the way to combat that is more sleep. And the people that don't get that, that's one of the ways. But the people that aren't getting that sleep. So if you're used to going, running, burning the candle on both ends, this is going to doubly affect you. So you'll start seeing people that are normally don't get much sleep or rely on their morning coffees. They're going to start really being affected by this. And the best way to do it is to, like you said, come right back to that heart consciousness and come back to centering yourself, breathing, knowing what your truth is, standing in it. Don't get thrown off by the other, like the depression around you, the anger, or people going off the handle.
Yeah, I've actually heard about something along those lines recently. So is this something that we should expect for a considerable more amount of time? I mean,
Well, from what I was told, this isn't exactly my area. The health effects of it, I'm very passionate about, but the actual solar flares and the geomagnetic stress it's causing on the planet and the magnetic stress, that would be, like I said, I would refer you to Simon Atkins. That
yeah.
guy is right on top of things. But it is we've been in an uptick for I think a couple of years now with the solar flares. And what I was told and what I've heard is this September is when it's going to slow down a little more. But from now till then, you'll notice different things, or perhaps it's a little more difficult to deal with stuff that you normally would just cruise right past in life. So that's where the meditation, extra sleep, knowing nothing is as serious as it seems.
Yeah. Have you noticed? I don't know if you sort of, as the saying goes, like keep your eyes on the sky, and do you sort of watch for chemtrails?
Oh yeah, we they bombard us. It's like a checkerboard where I'm
Okay.
at.
Yeah. See, I'm in where I'm at in the central coast of California. I've been here, moved back about 4 years ago, and I had never really realized it, even having been aware of it, of the whole idea for quite a while. But it was about, I guess, maybe a month and a half ago. I really, really, really started to notice it. And then a couple weeks ago, so maybe a couple weeks, 3 weeks after I really started to notice these chemtrails, we had a heat wave that was breaking all sorts of records for this time of year here. And the weather has just been pretty wild, I guess, for this time of year.
Yeah, it's they've been doing it since the early 90s from what I understand. And I know you had Michael Murphy on.
Yeah,
Great
yeah,
great guy, great interview, and he's been on top of it. He's one of the guys, and Scott Stevens as well, were the two people that really put their name out there at the beginning and got a lot of ridicule. But it's been going on for a while now, and there's a lot of agendas attached to that. So it's hard to separate disinformation with reality. But as far as the hard facts are concerned, one of the things that is interesting to note is Monsanto has patented a seed that is resistant to aluminum and barium, basically everything they spray.
hmm
So that begs the question, why would they do that?
yeah. Yeah, like I said, it has been the first time actually in my entire life, but especially since I've been aware of it, that I've really noticed. And you begin to wonder, and but the thing is, I've noticed there's a local website here that sort of is just kind of a local thing. People will talk about everything from the police blotter to the weather and what's going on. And there was actual conversations going on about chemtrails, which of course is one of those things that's very it's a touchy subject, I think, to put it lightly. And you get the tinfoil hat thing thrown around, and you know. But I think at least from my research, it seems that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that there's something going on.
Absolutely, no question about it. I mean, you can even believe, like they say, believe your lying eyes, or you can believe regular media.
Hmm.
But it's in the soil samples. Kristen Megan was one of the first military whistleblowers.
Yeah.
She came out and said, look, they had these large shipments of the exact chemicals on base, and I was not allowed to get to question why these chemicals are here or what they're for. And I mean, really, if you all you have to do is go out and take a soil sample in certain areas, and you can see the elevated, or a water sample when it rains. If there's chemtrails and it rains, get a water sample, send it into the local lab or the local university lab, and they'll tell you exactly what's in it. And there shouldn't be barium or high levels of aluminum in there. That's not something that's in regular rainwater.
Yeah, and of course, if you Google chemtrails or anything like that, I think even Michael Murphy's name, you Google it, and instead of getting his website or any of his documentaries or anything like that, I think the first page on Google is all Metabunk stuff,
Hmm.
Mick West stuff, who is perplexes me.
Yeah, I believe it's one of the big pillar agendas, and that's why it's so people are so viciously attacked. One of the things I use for my research is anything you see, I see the establishment really attacking. Almost, if you see it, it's almost for no reason they're attacking someone. It sparks my interest because there's a reason so much energy is going towards negatively attacking somebody, and especially if the person, in my opinion, would have higher integrity. If they are a tinfoil hat person and they're getting attacked, then that they, I guess, deserve it. But they're people that present themselves with integrity and have factual information that get attacked. That's a big red flag for me, and I want to hear more of what they have to say. Really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you see in Michael Murphy's movies, towards the end, I can't remember if it's "What in the World Are They Spraying" or "Why in the World Are They Spraying," when he actually goes to Congress and he's more or less laughed off by everyone who he tries to approach. And there's these clips of them laughing about it in Parliament, and I think they actually talk about the tinfoil hat in Parliament. So yeah, like you said, that sort of negative attention that's drawn towards it is sort of a red flag.
Also, too, when you see NASA has been coming out and talking about the possibility of spraying to combat climate change, global warming, or whatever they're calling it, and that seems to be Michael Murphy stumbled upon it before they were ready to announce it. So, as if perhaps one of the trends I also see is the big business or corporations or government, whatever you want to call it, they have an agenda, and they don't seem to realize the how fast information travels on the internet or how fast people learn about it, because they'll come out with stories that it would be better for them to just shut up and not come out with them because everyone knows they're lying. But they come out and tell the story anyway, or they say it on the news anyway. And sure, there's a small group of people that perhaps are still falling for that, but the larger group says, is anybody falling for this? It's almost laughable, some of the stuff they come out with. I mean, chemtrails, for example, when NASA says, we're kicking around the idea of doing this for the environment, and I look overhead and I see a plane spraying, and I think, well, this is kind of funny. And there's been 3 documentaries now on chemtrails. It's like, you guys, you should be reading the internet. We've been talking about this for 10 years.
Yeah.
We kind of already checkmated you.
Yeah. And I've actually got pictures on my phone. It's so crazy that I mean, once you actually see it, and you actually mentioned the term checkerboard, it's gotten to that point here where you're looking at it and you're like, all right, there's something sort of systematic going on here, or these planes just happen to be flying in this perfect pattern that they're drawing us a picture in the sky, So
Right.
it becomes a little bit ridiculous at some point, but there is, and that sort of gets to the idea that one of Snowden's revelations recently was that something that we all knew, but that there is paid government shills online.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that that's easy to see if you've done any amount of research into any one of the things that we could talk about on the podcast. But to have that sort of confirmation was good, because that term does get thrown around a lot, but it's also used against, I think, the movement, in that, oh yeah, they think that everybody that disagrees with them is a shill.
Yeah, also too, it's already been leaked and written about that some of those comments are artificial intelligence, AI. That those aren't
Yeah.
even real people, because they, as soon as an article goes up, there's been a lot of people that reported about this. The comment happens that second, so there's no way a regular person could have read the article or have something prepared. So a lot of that stuff, I mean, for the people that are trying to do good and are arguing with people that comment, you might be arguing with a computer. So save your energy.
I mean, it's a crazy thought to. I mean, they've got to have technology beyond what you or I could even really imagine at this point. And what are they using against us that we don't know about?
Well, one of the big things I think is I'm not going to say a blind spot because there's a lot of people talking about it, but the electromagnetic radio frequencies. It's estimated. I heard a recent interview of Nick Begich, and he's pretty much the pioneer of blowing the whistle on that. He did many studies on this stuff for the last 20, 30 years. And he said there's, in our environment right now, there's 200 million times more radio frequency than there was 100 years ago on the planet. And you have
Wow.
to, it goes back to what I was saying about the magnetic solar flares, the solar activity. Our bodies are electromagnetic. So if you throw electromagnetic frequencies at us and bombard us, especially while we're sleeping, those things are going to throw, it's going to throw stuff off. And that kind of brings me to the cancer thing. Um, I went to a recent talk, Brian Clement of the Hippocrates Institute, and he said, we're seeing a lot of people coming in with brain tumors on the side that their phones are on. And he said it's actually an epidemic that is not being reported, as well as the Gerson Institute, which is in Baja California, Baja, Mexico, basically. They said the same thing. I heard an interview within 2 weeks of each other. I heard two of these directors of these alternative cancer places saying they're coming in and it's on the sides that they put their phone in their pocket and the side of the head that they hold their phone, and they're having tumors. So the media is either A, not picking that up, but I suggest that I'm sure the hospitals aren't reporting it. They're not able to report that to the public, because I'm sure if we're not at epidemic levels on that, we got to be close, because I know it's multiple times higher than it was before cell phones.
Yeah. Well, you've heard about smart meters, of course.
Yes.
I was living in an apartment for almost 3 years prior to the one that I'm living in now, and I had no idea about smart meters or anything like that. But there was a smart meter on this apartment, and it would only happen in when I was sort of in that sleep state, like nearly, maybe half asleep to. I don't think I would get to the point where I was fully asleep that it wasn't really happening, but in that sort of in between period, my whole body would jolt like every
Yeah.
minute or whenever that thing would pulse, and it was crazy. I had no idea what was going on, but literally it seemed like every muscle in my body twitched.
You know what? Obviously no doctor, but that is exactly the same response so many people are getting from that. And what it does is that's the update. So I don't know if you ever had your cell phone next to your computer speakers or a regular speaker, and you hear like a sound every
Yeah, yeah,
30
like a
seconds or a minute.
static.
Exactly. That's the same thing that's happening with those smart meters. But the smart meters is a powerful thing coming through your house. So it's affecting you. Some people are a little more sensitive. It's kind of like gluten almost. Some people are really sensitive to gluten, and those people are what are termed celiac disease. And
Hmm.
some people think they're not, but everyone is alert, or everyone has a reaction to gluten. That's how it is with the Wi-Fi or the smart meters. Some people are really affected by it to the point where they get like nauseous, sick, they get headaches, and then some people don't feel it at all. But everyone's being affected by it on a cellular level. It's unravels your DNA basically. That's what the cell phones do. I know that for sure, but I can only imagine what the other ones do.
Yeah, I mean, it was no joke, man. It would like jolt me awake, and this was happening nightly.
Well, there's a guy that I met. He was at an expo, a health expo I helped put on, and his name's Mark Romero, and he has some ways of basically grounding the house. So the frequencies don't affect the bodies, the people in the house. I'm still looking into some of his research and his work, but it seems at this stage it seems pretty good, because the only other option is you fight it in the city, or you fight it with your electric company, because they're going forward with that agenda, and they don't seem to be stopping very quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's we've almost gotten to this point where we've had this technology for a period of time that we sort of don't really think about it. We've got all this Wi-Fi flowing through our house in probably nearly every household in the country. Whether even you're getting it from your neighbors or not, if you don't even have the Wi-Fi in your house, and we've got cell phones and we've got these smart meters, and you've really got to wonder what effect this is having us and what we're going to see in the future. I mean, not to mention Fukushima.
Yeah, there's a great documentary. If people are saying smart meters, what? There's a documentary called "Take Back Your Power,"
Okay.
and it's on YouTube. And the guy that we worked with, the guy that was the filmmaker, and he's really active. He's all over Twitter. He's all over social media. He writes. He's really trying to get the word out there. Um, one of the things I was going to say about that, I lost my train of thought, but I'm
Yeah,
sorry. You can go on.
it happens to the best of us, I assure you. Well, yeah, I mean, I was having this conversation with Dr. Elizabeth Saturis in one of our first podcasts, and she it takes it really far, actually, to the point where it's making me think if I should. She doesn't use any Wi-Fi. I believe the term that she used was electrosmog,
Yes.
just for all of the sort of electromagnetic energy that's just sort of flowing through us, throughout the day. But I mean, even if at your own home you're able to avoid it, you're still going to get some of that Wi-Fi from your neighbors. If you go out into the city or you go into town to get something, there's Wi-Fi everywhere. I mean, we're being affected by it, even those of us that are really going out of our way to avoid it.
Yeah, I agree. And on the flip side of it, though, the body is a very resilient thing. I mean, if you think about all the things we're being hit by, and to even be able to get up and have a good day and
Yeah,
be happy,
yeah.
it's there's something else at play when it comes to the 3D physical stuff going on. And some people are able to. I mean, it goes back to, like, I take Keith Richards, the guitarist for Rolling Stone. The guy, I don't know, is 80 something. He's done every drug on the face of the planet, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he looks great, but he's still moving. He's still doing rock shows, which is
Yeah.
more than I could probably do at this age. And there's some people that can rise above that stuff. And one of the things that bothers me with the smart meters and the Wi-Fi is it's all schools basically have Wi-Fi, and it's been known to make kids hyperactive, among other things. Personality disorders. There's a huge list of stuff that Wi-Fi does to children. So my
Well,
question is, why not take it out of the school instead of adding more medication to the kids? I mean, it's an easy answer because of big pharma, but
yeah.
it's an easy one. I mean, the parents should be up in arms about this, of taking the Wi-Fi out of the school and having computers that plug in at least.
Well, they're not. They're putting their children on more psychotropic drugs and doing everything that the system is telling them to do. I recently, in order to have the Vibin Higher Facebook, I had to create my own, and I kind of kept it meager at first, just a few friends, but I've added some people throughout, since February, I think, when I begun it. And man, I see these really just well-meaning, intelligent people that are just going on with their daily lives and working their job and taking their kids to the daycare and doing things, but they're feeding their kids things and putting them on these medications that, man, if I ever had a kid, it wouldn't go anywhere near my children.
Well, maybe that's why they're on your website and your Facebook, is because they need to hear this information. Once people hear this information, and it's everywhere now. That's the beautiful thing about the internet. It's just not just one person talking about it that can be discredited. You have doctors coming out. You have people from all walks of life coming out and speaking about this, because it is a danger, and they're going to hear it sooner or later. I use the story of my mom. I used to try to really. I call help my mom, but really I was trying to change her. So I was trying to get her to eat healthier and whatever. So I finally gave up, and she watches Dr. Oz. So a couple years later, she starts coming to me with the same stuff I was trying to get her to change, but when she saw it on Dr. Oz,
Yeah.
she did it all, but she didn't realize that that was the same stuff I used to try to tell her 2 years ago. She had no recollection of that. So really, sometimes people can't hear you, but if you withdraw your energy, if they need to know, they're gonna hear it, or if their life path takes them that way, they'll hear it. So some of the people that are the most oblivious once they wake up are the strongest fighters for good.
Yeah,
I
no,
found.
absolutely. You know, you're right. I've got a family member that I think I've talked about on the podcast before. My grandma, who I like you, I guess, trying to help her and show her things that when I saw them led me down a path that put me where I'm at now and put me into this activism and wanting to change the world because I could see it for what it was. I would show her things and send her articles and YouTube videos and all this stuff and I gave her DVDs and books, and I was living right next door to her at the time. And she would come up with like the smallest, most minuscule things to sort of write off whatever it was. I kid you not. One time I sent her a YouTube video that was actually really well done, and I can't remember what it was on. But she said that the background music was too weird. She said, that did you hear that background music? I can't watch that. And it's almost like on some sort of like subconscious level, people I think are afraid. Like I think that maybe they can, to some degree, realize that the world is really messed up, but they're not allowing themselves to sort of open up to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you challenge someone's worldview that they've built up for so long, especially someone at that age.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed with that older generation is corruption was obvious when they were growing up. So, they were, greatest generation, World War II, and God bless them. But corruption was not typically coming from their government or big companies. Big companies and their government were things that they were standing behind and going to war for. And they still have that mindset a lot of ways. So they also they trust their doctor to the end. And I've noticed that too. They won't look at any other alternative treatments. They won't look at anything the doctor doesn't say is something they should take. And I'm not saying go against your doctor's wishes, but some doctors are not keeping up with the times, and the times are changing very quickly. And in addition, in med school, most doctors don't get much nutritional teachings. They get the teachings of a Western medicine allopathic doctor, and nutrition's where it's at. This new documentary, The Quest for the Cures by Ty Bollinger, it's coming out this Monday, which is the 26th,
Okay.
and it's going to change the game. It's a 7-day event. Basically, it's a 7-part series, and I just recently wrote an article about it. I'll send it over to you. Cancer research and cures, many cures have been suppressed over the last 100 years, and this is putting them all the information into one nice little package, where before it was scattered, and it was very easy to, if I was working in the kitchen and I all of a sudden found some great cure for cancer, or found that eating apples cured cancer, and I tried to start a website, it would be very easy for them to shut me down. But what Ty Bollinger has been doing, a lot of other people as well, is he's putting these things, he went across the country and he talked to all these people, cancer survivors, doctors, clinics that are doing these outside the box things that are actually curing. I shouldn't say the word cure, but they're actually putting cancer in remission or changing these people's lives, and it's going to be amazing. I think it's another version or side of that coin of the global awakening you're talking about. And I don't think cancer, for the people that want to listen and go search that information out, I think cancer's over. I really do.
Yeah, I actually saw something about that on your Twitter timeline, so I'll definitely have to do a little bit more research on that. That sounds exciting. It is a crazy thing. Have you ever seen the movie Thrive?
Yes.
Okay, see, Thrive is one of those documentaries that I kind of like to point people to, because although they do get a little bit weirded out by like the extraterrestrial stuff and the crop
Right.
circles and that, I think that Thrive does an incredible job of sort of summarizing a lot of things in an easily digestible way.
Yes.
Right, and it actually talks about these sort of suppressed cancer treatments in Thrive. So I think that the consciousness surrounding that issue is definitely growing, and hopefully to the point, like you said, where we can actually do something about it. Because who hasn't lost somebody to cancer, or who currently knows somebody who's suffering from cancer?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's a lifestyle change, it's a diet change, and once people start realizing that, their body will not be receptive to cancer. It won't grow it in their body. It's basically, I mean, if I could boil it down, just changing it to a more alkaline. That's where it goes back to growing your food. If you grow green plants, kale, chard, all this stuff, this is going to change the alkalinity of your body, and it won't allow this cancer to grow in there. That, among other things, but also clearing the toxins out. It's kind of like the two-headed dragon, the acidic body, and then extreme amounts of toxins. And as a third point to that, the way you think is a big part of that, because your brain is your biggest energy disruptor. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts. So you could be the healthiest person in the world, but if you are the most negative person in the world, that trumps what you eat at some level, and it's going to manifest.
Yeah, that was like I was telling you about my grandma. One of the big pushes that I was trying to make with her was that my grandpa had actually had cancer that had come back from remission, and she is actually in the medical field herself. So she's sort of got all of her education and thinks that we're on the cutting edge of all this technology constantly, and that the only purpose that these drug companies have, or that the Western medicine has, is to fully heal everyone. That's really where she's at. And I was giving her books and DVDs and all of this stuff, and I swear they're collecting dust. She thinks it's quackery.
Send her to something. Have her do some research on what was called the Flexner Report. Flexner Report. Yes, he was a man that was sent out across the country by Rockefeller. In my articles,
that's what I want. I wanted to talk to you about this. Let's get into this.
Okay, that's what I said in my article. I mentioned the word Rockefeller medicine, and James Corbett, CorbettReport.com does it. I linked it in my article. He does an amazing, if you want to send her that, it's a very, very high integrity, probably 15-minute bit of the history of Rockefeller medicine. It is beautiful, and it's all documented. So he sent this guy around to all the big universities and med schools to see who was doing what, and the people that weren't using big pharma or the mainstream treatments were booted out, basically. So he started schools. He gave funding to the big schools. You can see they start these NGOs, non-government organizations. You have the Rockefeller Institute, the Carnegie Institute, the Ford Foundation. These are ways where they can control stuff, but it looks like a charitable organization. So they built the med schools for a lot of schools, and it was on their grants. And one of the caveats was they have to retain some of the people on their board, or at least have a lot of say in what's studied and which direction it goes. And the pharmaceutical industry is essentially a petrochemical industry. So that's where Rockefeller was an oil man. That's where those links come in. It was basically monopoly. And he famously said competition is a sin. So,
yeah.
I mean, he publicly was saying, I want no competition. So basically he just wrapped up the oil industry, and he went on to the educational industry, Freudian slip there, the educational system, and then the medical system. He just went right down the line. He had the money to do it, and he monopolized every one of those. And the AMA, I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So there's a man named Royal A. Rife, and he used frequency to destroy cancer in, the 30s and 40s. And he was brought on trial, and of course he was brutally suppressed with that, and his equipment was taken away. But he essentially destroyed the cancer. He called it a cancer virus because he was able to see it in a microscope that he made, which was the best one in the world. And he was seeing things that other people weren't seeing. Other microscopes weren't strong enough. And he would see the cancer as soon as it manifested physically. And he had a machine that would shoot a frequency at it. It sounds crazy, but I mean, it's all documented. In fact, one of the biggest smoking guns, in my opinion, is if you type in Royal Rife testimony on a Google search engine, and it has his word-for-word testimony in his first court case. And it's actually kind of sad because from reading it, it sounds like he went in there thinking he was going to get a fair trial, because in fairness, he was written up by a lot of universities and a lot of local papers and national papers as the man who's going to end all disease, kind of like Tesla, the man who has found a way to stop cancer. And he sent all this information out, and a lot of universities picked it up and ran with it and wanted to see it. And the American Medical Association we just gave him the silent treatment. They wouldn't check it out at all.
Wow.
It was very interesting. And his stuff was, I mean, zero tinfoil hat with him. It was 100%. I mean, he was such a methodical researcher. In fact, there's also a YouTube video online that is like a walkthrough of his lab, and it's totally methodical. Everything he did was absolutely to a T scientific. And that's one of the people that you don't hear about anymore because it's hard to argue with him because he played the same game the scientists did, but played it better. And they don't have an answer for that one.
So it's easy to see when you're looking at stuff like this how it goes back so far, and it's so deep seated, this sort of control that they have over, not only the medical system but other industries, as you said, that somebody like my grandmother, who's in her 60s and sort of grew up, went to nursing school, all of this stuff, she's been around a lot longer than I have, and she grew up in this system. So what she doesn't realize is the system itself was corrupted long before she came around.
Absolutely. Yes, that's it. That's exactly it.
It's a crazy, crazy thing.
I think each generation has its own, I'm not going to say battles, but its own things to overcome. So, and each generation thinks it's horrible and it's the end of the world. And I think we just do our best we can. One of the things I found is if I know somebody, it helps to talk to them in a way that would reach them. So instead of perhaps throwing videos at her that have weird music that won't get to her. One of the things I like to say about cancer with people is the government declared a war on cancer in the 70s. I believe it was the late 70s. They came out publicly and said, we're going to declare war on cancer. And it kills more people in the U.S. I believe the statistic now is more people in the U.S. than the world. And of course, it's like a billions and billions of dollars industry, and they still can't find a cure for it. And I always make the joke, anything that the government declares war on is going to just grow because they declare war on drugs, and we kind of lost that one too.
We need to declare a war on wars, but an actual war, and not one of these phony wars that seem to create more of whatever they're warring upon.
Yeah, the war on poverty, kind of lost that one too.
Yeah.
Unemployed people.
It's crazy. And like with the medical system, I like to talk about energy a lot because that's one of those things that I've done. A lot of my research has gone into the idea of free energy, which I think they talk about it in Thrive.
Yes.
And it sounds a lot like these cancer treatments that are being suppressed, where these people are coming up with these devices on their own that could really free the world from this sort of death grip from fossil fuels, and they're swooping in with probably this NSA technology and the stuff like that we were talking about. That they hear about it before it even gets out of their mouth, and shutting them down.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to, I mean, the one thing they can't control is the way we eat yet. So if you eat right, cancer cannot manifest if you eat the correct things and do your best to avoid the toxins. Those are the two things where people can really take their power back. Beyond that, yeah, there's a lot of medical technologies. There's a new company in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they're doing Rife technology. So it's a version of the Rife machine.
Okay.
There's another. This is all energetic. There's an energetic system. It's called the BEMER, the Beamer technology, and it's somewhat similar. And there's a handful I've been researching that there's also a cyber scan. That's another one. A lot of these are coming out. So I'm wondering if this is kind of the new age, if they got the green light to do this, and that's kind of like the new system. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's certainly very exciting in all of these fields. I think we're making progress in all of these fields, and I really, really, truly believe with every fiber of my being that we're really on an upswing here. And it could get worse before all is said and done, but I think I really, really believe that the end result is going to be something that I can't even really fathom. When you look at things like energy, I mean, just the energy, what would happen if energy was freely available to everybody? Is a crazy thing. Yeah, and you look at all these medical advancements that we could potentially be making, and completely redoing the educational system so that it fosters people's See, that's one of those things that I haven't really gotten into very much, but it seems to me that education could be vastly overhauled so that it sort of fosters people's natural abilities and things that they want to learn and be good at.
Yeah. Yeah, the Steiner School was doing that. Rudolf Steiner was I mean, he was a lot of things, a philosopher, a poet, a long list of things he was credited for doing. But he started something called the Steiner School, and it still goes on today. And it goes with those techniques. They learn the true arts. There's a whole different learning curriculum and system. The downside is very expensive to enroll children in there, but it's a amazing thing if and when children come my way, that's where I'm putting them.
Well, you and I were talking about college a little bit, and I'm telling you, I do tremendously well in classes where I'm attracted to the material, and I feel like it would be beneficial to me, and I actually want to learn it. But when I'm being force-fed this stuff that I really cannot see the benefit of, it's literally, I mean, it goes beyond being a chore. It's almost impossible to do some of the things that they try to get you to do and read and regurgitate.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons, I mean, they're teaching people to follow orders.
Yeah.
That's
Charlotte
one of the big
Iserbyt,
things.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So the deliberate dumbing down of America. And Charlotte Iserbyt, who is a whistleblower, she was the former head of the Department of Education, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's all super interesting stuff that I think should really be common knowledge, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically it is common knowledge.
Yeah.
People just have to go attack that information because it's out there. That's why we're talking.
Well, one of the things that I did want to talk about with you, and that's sort of a good segue, is what sort of common sense things that people can do. I like to call it armchair activism, but not in a negative sense, in the sense that you could get on your phone, even though it's sending those electromagnetic waves through you at the time, like we talked about, but you can get on your phone, get on Twitter, and retweet articles or read articles or get on Facebook and post articles on Facebook, and doing something as simple as that's literally a swipe of the thumb. You could post that article or post that video or that podcast that turns on the light in somebody's head. And I think that that's happening anyway, but the more people that we can get to do certain things like that and just get involved in even a tiny way will only help us in the long run. So I did want to get into a couple maybe solutions that you thought that people could do. The average person that's not really involved right now but is a heavy listener and wants to maybe get involved.
So you just mentioned about college, how they kind of stamp out the same mold, and they teach people to really just be followers. And if people break that, you obviously have to go to college, you have to make a living, but if you refine your passion once you leave college and go with that. So some people are writers, some people are musicians, and you use that talent to bring awareness to something that you think is a big deal. So if you think not eating GMO food or cancer is a big deal, start writing about it. Write some songs about it. I mean, who knows? You could be a lot of the greatest leaders and teachers weren't born leaders or teachers, and they didn't go to school to be leaders and teachers. They were put in positions where they had to speak up because no one else was talking about it. There's a great thing I have. Let's see here. It's on my wall. It's by Hunter S. Thompson. He was a writer in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, and 80s and 90s. But it's right in front of me. It says, "There is no story unless you've written it." And that was one of his quotes. And I have that in front of my computer every day because there's so many stories out there that no one's talking about, or if people are talking about it, it's very, very small voices. And I kept waiting for someone to write it. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to write this damn thing. And here I am writing articles now. But some of the other simple solutions, I really think that it hinges on people's health. If you're not healthy, you can't do anything. You can't get the motivation to be creative or to fight back or do armchair activism. So you have to learn how to at least take care of yourself, eat healthy. I go back to planting a garden. Everyone should really be doing that. Or at least if you don't have the land for that, meet your local farmers, go to your local farmers co-op or community garden, whatever it is. But try to get healthy. And the best way to do that is to source your own food locally, because in the news as well, as far as things going on, China and Russia just made a landmark $400 billion basically gas deal, and that's going to change the dollar. So where I'm going with that is foods most likely may get some more expensive, and that's kind of like a double whammy if you're growing your own food. Not only is it going to be healthier, cleaner, not as toxic, but you don't have to worry. It's cheaper. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very cheap.
I actually just posted a picture on the Facebook last week, I believe, where it showed a picture of an American neighborhood, which of course was just grass in the front yard, grass in the backyard, and then a neighborhood, I believe, in Switzerland, which had gardens both in front and in back.
Yeah.
And they would actually get together with their neighbors in their neighborhood, and they would decide, you grow this, I'm going to grow that, and then they'll trade and barter, and so that they're all benefiting from this. And it seems like such a obvious thing, but nobody does it, right?
There's a guy, anybody listening to this will be the most important thing I could leave people with, is his name's Ron Finley, and it's on YouTube, and it's basically called Ron Finley, a guerrilla gardener in South Central LA. And it's a TEDx talk with this guy who decided to start growing food on the curbs in South Central LA.
Wow.
And it shows how it brought the community together. And it's really darn cool. But it's a perfect example of there's land everywhere. There's little, islands and neighborhood turnarounds. People should be planting food there. People should be planting in their front yard. Just get that stuff out there. Change the paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. And even I spoke about this with somebody. Right now, I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment, in an apartment building. So there's the parking lot in the back. There's not really any area to grow anything. But you can go and I think actually I spoke with you about this. You can go to these, there's urban gardening places all over the place now where you get, it looks like a maybe foot in diameter PVC pipe with a little bit of, water running through it. And I don't know exactly how it's done, but you can grow whatever you want in what is essentially 1 square foot vertically.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
that's aquaponics
Yeah.
with the water. That if you're in a warm climate, you can do that all year round. It's perfect. The people that are in colder climates have to use like grow lights and stuff like that. But you can take advantage of that. There's another video again on YouTube. There's a guy in Australia that has this gigantic. I think he took his pool and made a gigantic aquaponics thing. But he grows a
Wow.
ton of food off this thing. And the beautiful thing about the aquaponics is the plant's life is extended, so it grows longer. So you get more out of that seed of lettuce that you put in there or whatever. It grows longer than in the garden in soil.
Wow. Yeah, so a lot of exciting things going on, and that goes back to, I think, the idea that we're advancing in all of these areas. I think spiritually we're advancing, obviously medically, like you and I have talked about, with our food, no doubt, and we're even making advancements in the fluoride being taken out of the water. Dallas, I know, recently took fluoride out of the water. So there is a lot of these victories going on, and that is certainly a good feeling, and it's good to see.
Yeah, with the victories, for the people that are awake, you can see for lack of any other better term, the system is panicking.
Yeah.
And that's what gives me hope, because I really believe the reason Obamacare is here is because they know that people are taking their health into their own hands, and they know that cancer is going to be done with, and they have to force treatment upon us now and force us into a medical system that normally people with free association would walk away from or run away from. So I believe that's the reason that's happening as well. I really do. I think that's the number one reason, although they sell it under trying to help people, but I don't think that's true.
Let me tell people, especially with all the VA scandal stuff going on right now, that government-run healthcare does not work. Like, I've experienced it. I experienced it for 5 years in the military. I've sort of experienced it since I've been out with the couple of things that have come up that I decided to go to the VA hospital about, which I didn't get anything from. It's not good. It's not good, and we're seeing that in the news now.
And it's been going on for a long time. There's a perfect interview for you. I can flip the tables. I'll interview you on the VA stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I mean, especially it's one of those topics right now. But if it's anything like, and you've got to believe that it will be, the VA healthcare, it's terrible. It's terrible, and it doesn't even go. It doesn't stop at healthcare. It's these benefits that you're supposed to be getting from the VA. It's terrible. None of it. I've had nothing but issues since I've gotten out of the military with a lot of this stuff.
Yes, it goes back to a basic thing, scarcity versus abundance. And we should be living from an abundance mentality. So when it comes to my health, I should have the choice to have an abundant life with the best health I could have. But the VA hospital, or I'm going to say Obamacare, they say, well, we have to ration care. And I know there's this famous speech of Bill Gates saying, well, if we don't give grandma treatment in the last, year or couple months of her life, we can hire 10 new teachers. And that's operating from a fear-based scarcity mentality. And anybody that buys into that is going to be hitching their wagon onto this lower negative vibrational system that is just going to take people down.
Yeah, just real quick, and then we'll sort of wrap it up here. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an example. When I was actually active duty and I was at a Rancid concert. You ever heard of Rancid?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I was at a Rancid concert. Some guy jumping off the stage lands on my head and like tweaks my neck, and I had to leave, and I like my whole upper body, like I couldn't move it at all. Like I could sort of turn at the waist, but I was like numb, and I couldn't move anything, and I was freaked out. Like I thought that I might end up paralyzed or something. It's a terrible thing that happens to you. So the VA hospital on base, or the military hospital on base, is closed at 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. or something. So I go into the emergency at like 5 a.m. and I'm like, I can't move my upper body. Somebody landed on my neck, and they're like, well, you have to be in uniform. And I'm like, I don't even think I could put my uniform on if I tried. So they're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. So I go back, and I managed to get into my uniform. I go back to the hospital. They're like, well, you can't come into emergency right now. And I don't remember the excuse that was given to me. So they then had to go upstairs to the area where we normally make appointments, which you'd get an appointment 3 weeks later or something along those lines. And basically it boiled down to me. I was having to yell at people like, look, I'm freaked out. I can't move my upper body. Somebody landed on my head. I tweaked my neck. Like, put me in with a doctor right now. And so I finally got in with somebody, and they did all these tests and sent me through this, I did a CAT scan or whatever. And the doctor comes to me after basically a half a day of all this type of stuff and says, well, we don't really know what's wrong with you, but I'm going to give you a bottle of this, a bottle of this, and a bottle of this. And they were all painkillers, just different types of painkillers. And they each had like 2 refills on it. Yep. So I spent the next week drooling on myself in the bed, but to this day had no idea whatever went wrong with me.
Yeah, it goes back to you're a dollar sign at that point. So compassion's out the window. In fact, the Hippocratic Oath is what doctors are supposed to take to do no harm. I believe they stopped saying that.
Yeah, Joni Abbott and I talked about that. They have stopped saying the Hippocratic Oath.
Yes, you become a dollar sign. In fact, in the Soviet Union, they were an example of socialized medicine, and I used to read quite a bit about the Soviet Union because that's kind of where we seem to be going. And they had a lot of the hospitals put their cardiac wards on the top floor, and the patients that had to go get the stress tests because they had chest pains had to walk up the stairs.
That's wonderful.
It's crazy. So I mean, it's stuff like that. These little, or just like you walked in there. Little things like, well, you don't have your uniform on, so you have to go back and get that, or just crazy stuff that it's basically you're costing them money, and they're trying to save money, and that's what's happening with that VA. Everybody that's blown the whistle on the VA is saying they're being denied care or they have lack of care, and that's the lack of care translates to bigger bottom line for the hospital and for the CEOs and the people that own it and the directors. That's all that's going on there.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this stuff all pans out. But I like you said, the whistleblowers that are coming out. And I hope, as I always do, and in any industry or any system or any portion of all of this, that more whistleblowers continue to come out. So with that, I will give you the next couple of minutes to sort of plug your website, your social media, anything that you want to get out there for everybody.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I have been writing for a lot more websites recently. Natural News picked up one of my articles, which is kind of it was a big deal for me. That was kind of, it goes back to that activism thing. When I started out, I thought, hey, I should write an article about this. And then here I am getting a personal email from Mike Adams and the Food Babe saying, "Hey, great job on the article." And I thought, there's no one around when I got the email, but I was looking around, just patting myself on the back.
Yeah,
I wish I could share this with someone, but I guess I'm sharing it now. So anyway,
no, congratulations. And I routinely say this, and sorry to interrupt you, but your writing is incredible, and I say it on Twitter all the time. But every piece that you put on VibinHigher.com, it's a home run. You knock it out of the park every time.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot. So my website, Jeffery, Jefferey Jaxen.com. And from there, they have all the links to I have a Facebook and Twitter, and that's really about it. I write for Collective Evolution and Waking Times, and it looks like I may be doing some more natural news stuff, but most of my stuff I post there first. So if you want to get it hot off the press, that's where to go.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. I had no idea about the natural news thing, so
thanks.
Keep up the excellent work. I mean, you're definitely somebody that we can all look up to, and that you just decided to start doing it, and you're making good things happen, and I think that you're having an effect.
Thank you. Yes, I encourage more people to do it. There's better writers and better everything than I can do out there, and I know that's what was happening with me. Is I used to be listening to people I looked up to, and the people I looked up to said, "I know you're sitting out there and you want to start writing," and I thought, man, they're kind of reading my mind.
Yeah.
So to the next generation, whoever else is listening, start doing something. Start writing music. Start getting local in your community. If you're a farmer, get to the farmer's market. Just get out there and be active. Because if you sit back and sleep on this, it's going to be centralized into companies that don't have your best interest in mind, and that goes with the medical community too. So I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. And to sort of close it out, Sean David Morton left us at the end of my interview with him with, if this doesn't all go our way, which I've said emphatically during this interview that I believe that it will, at least those of us like you and I can say that we tried and we did something. So that's good, and don't let this pass you by. So Jeffrey, thanks again. It's been incredible, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Trevor.
All right, folks, there you have it. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Jeffrey is truly a great dude. So if you haven't yet, get on Twitter, follow him. It's at Jeffery Jaxen. He's very active on Twitter, and he's got one of my favorite Twitter timelines, so a lot of good stuff there. As well, you can check out his website. It's jefferyjaxen.com. He also contributes writing to our website, which is vibinhigher.com. So I also just wanted to let everyone know that I'm eternally grateful for all of the support and interest shown in the podcast. So we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, the podcast can be found on YouTube as well. Get out there, listen to some old episodes, check it out, give us some feedback, and honestly, let us know if there's somebody that you'd like to hear interviewed. We would love to hear what you guys want. So with that, another edition is in the bag. We'll catch you next time on the Vibin Higher Podcast.